this video I'm going to discuss what I think are the best and worst bosses from various Pokemon games. And like in the Kirby and Mario videos I made, I haven't played every game in this series either, but I'll still be covering 11 games. First of all, I had to sort of make up my own definition of boss fight in terms of Pokemon games because there are no traditional boss fights in these games where it's your character literally fighting a boss. So I decided that gym leaders, Elite Four members, champions, trial captains, kahunas, team star leaders, team leaders, Titan Pokemon, Totem Pokemon, and Noble Pokemon would be considered boss fights. So not any random trainers or anything like that. With that said, let me start with Diamond and Pearl, which is the earliest Pokemon game I've played through. And you might expect me to say Cynthia is the best fight because she is almost undoubtedly the best champion in the series, but I have a certain bias here because Gardenia is my favorite gym leader in the series, so I just picked her instead. Otherwise, I probably would have said Cynthia. The worst fight is probably Lucian, though, the final Elite Four member. I remember Aaron and Flint being fine, but Bertha and Lucian were a bit more annoying with their teams. Lucian was especially annoying because Psychic is always a tough type to deal with, and Bronzong is truly a pain to knock out. Next is Heart Gold and Soul Silver, where I chose Lance as the best fight. After all, champions are supposed to be really climactic epic fights, and Lance does a good job at that, unlike this disappointment. The worst fight was definitely Claire. Some gym leaders are hard, but Claire was so hard for me that I lost any enjoyment in fighting her. Plus, she makes you do some stupid mission after fighting her before you can actually get the gym badge, which felt like a big waste of time after how many attempts I spent trying to beat her. Next is Pokemon White, and I'm going to say that the final battle of N is the best. He has a nice and diverse team, and being able to fight him with the legendary while he has the other legendary is pretty cool. The worst fight was Elisa, though, because I remember being pretty annoyed by her Emolga, which has resistance to Electric's only weakness, which is ground, because it's a flying type, and it had that stupid static ability. Her Zebstrika's Flame Charge was also pretty annoying. As for Black and White 2, I want to say that Skyla is the best fight, and this is sort of a Gardenia bias type thing again, because there's nothing specifically stand out about Skyla's gym battle. However, she's my favorite gym leader from Unova, so I felt like picking her. The worst fight is Caitlyn, though. Just like Lucian, she's a Psychic type Elite Four member, and her team has a very diverse attacks, like some Ice type, Flying type, Electric type, and Grass type ones, which made her kind of annoying to fight. Next is X and Y, where I want to say AZ is the best fight, for two reasons. First of all, the lore centered around fighting him makes it feel extra special, and also none of the gym leaders or Elite Four members or even the champion are really notable in X and Y, if you ask me. The worst fight is Corinna, specifically because of her stupid Hawlucha's Flying Press attack, which I remember somehow wiped my whole team one of the times I fought her. Next is Orez, and I picked Archie as the best fight. And this is also a bit of a biased one, since Alpha Sapphire was the first Pokemon game I played and Archie's my favorite villain, but I also think his team is pretty cool regardless, and he has that Mega Sharpedo, and in my opinion, Megas were the coolest battle gimmick ever introduced, and I know many others would agree. The worst fight is definitely Norman, though, and I'm only saying that because his stupid Retaliate attacks that his Slackings have, even if they do have that, Truant ability or whatever it's called, and also Normal's a pretty lame type. Next is Sun and Moon, where I picked Red as the best fight. In the post-game, you can fight either Red or Blue, and I've played through Sun twice, so I fought them both once, but I think Red's fight is better just because he's a more iconic character and his team is more epic and reminiscent of Kanto. Either way, the Red and Blue fights are a pretty cool nod to the series' origins and are also pretty fun. The worst fight is definitely Alima, because not only does... I think it's a guy... his Smeargle get an attack that is super effective against your starter, based on which starter you picked, but also one time I was doing a Sun and Moon Nuzlocke with two other people, and all three of us literally lost at the same exact spot, which was this evil creature. Next is Sword and Shield, and I'm going to say that the DLC is just included with it because Mustard's final battle is the best in my opinion. Just something about having your form of the Gigantamax Urshifu up against his form of G-Max Urshifu was just really epic and kind of similar to other fights like N, where you both have one legendary. He also has a pretty diverse team, which is nice. The worst fight is Piers, and I'm saying that because it's the only gym battle that doesn't allow for Dynamaxing. I just think it's kind of silly that they implemented this whole new gimmick, and you can't even use it in one of the gyms where Dynamaxing is most useful. Next is BDSP, and this time I actually did pick Cynthia, only because I actually enjoyed this fight against her more than the original because it didn't take me like 20 tries, it took me 1. The worst fight is still Lucian, for the same reasons for the original games. Then there's Pokemon Arceus, or Legends Arceus, where my definition for boss fight was a lot different from the other games, but also made more sense because in a way this is the only Pokemon game with true boss fights, where it's just you fighting an enemy. So I picked Arceus itself as the best fight, because it was honestly a really cool twist on the typical Pokemon battle formula. So were all the noble Pokemon and Dialga and Palkia, but Arceus' fight was the most climactic, and I really appreciate it for actually giving me a reason to want to fill out the Pokédex, because you have to do that to fight him. In this fight, along with the noble Pokemon fights, you start by throwing bombs at the Pokemon while dodging their attacks, kind of like a one-on-one of you and the Pokemon, and at various points in the fight you send your Pokemon in, and it turns into a traditional Pokemon battle. Also, Volo was a close second, but I had to pick Arceus. The worst fight is Charm. I didn't even know if I should consider the Misfortune Sisters as bosses, but I did, and they're all pretty annoying. But Charm is the most annoying since she has 2 Pokemon instead of 1, so she wastes even more of your time. Lastly, we have Scarlet and Violet, and I picked the fight of Turo as the best fight. I played Violet, not Scarlet, so I guess I would say Sada if I played Scarlet. And that's because it was really well put together, especially in terms of the build-up and the plot centered around it. It was also just a fun fight in general because of the diversity on his team and all the Paradox Pokemon he had. The worst fight is probably Ortega, though. He was the star leader that annoyed me the most, probably because I picked Quacklevola, which is weak to Fairy, his type, and also I just hate that kid's personality. With all that said, it's time to name my picks for best and worst Pokemon boss fights. The worst is Claire from Heart Gold and Soul Silver. In my opinion, she just gave me the hardest time of any gym leader ever, and she definitely annoyed me the most too. The best, though, is Arceus from Legends Arceus, for all the same reasons I listed when I covered that game. And that's all I have to cover, so if you like this video, consider liking and subscribing and watching my other stuff, like the Kirby and Mario videos I made for this same topic, and thanks for watching.